Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Everyone joining us online and in here. If I could just ask, first of all, for members of the Executive to introduce themselves. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, Neil Brooks, Cabinet Member for Enforcement, Public Safety, Highways and Transport.
And Councillor Taylor. And Councillor Benson.
Good evening, Chair. Cabinet Member for Community Engagement, Aspiration and Community Assets.
Thank you. And Councillor Hunter.
Good evening, Chair. Councillor Peter Hunter, Cabinet Assistant.
Thank you. So, as normal, if you want to speak, obviously just attract my attention in the usual manner. So, moving on to agenda item 1, declarations of interest. Councillor Benson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I declare a personal interest in item 1? As my husband is an employee of Blackpool Transport, there is a mention of concessionary fares, and it just as to consistency to mention.
Is that item 6?
It's
oh,
item
6, sorry.
Councillor.
Do apologise, 6.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, this is the first of our budget executive meetings. So we will start with a number of items that Steve Thompson's going to talk us through. So, agenda item 2, financial performance monitoring as at month 9. Are you there, Steve?
Thank you, Chair. The month 9, this is the first report that we've presented to the exec since month 7. It's shown an improvement since month 7, where we were showing an overspend of 7.1 million. That's dropped to 5.6 million. Main contributors being Treasury management and the performance of Blackpool Tower over the last season, and the outturn results were reported after the calendar year end. Of that 5.6 million overspend, 3.7 million relates to COVID. So the net of that is some 1.9 million pounds. So encouraging position, and with working balances, we're in the black, and we're carrying forward currently forecasts of about £700,000 to add to what we've identified in the revenue budget. So we'll comfortably carry forward over 6 million, which was the target for the last few years. Elsewhere within the budget, it's worth saying that the budget savings target for the current year was 20.3 million, and we're almost there, 99% there, which is remarkable. Yes, other pressures have emerged during the year, but the plan that we set ourselves at the start of the year has been adhered to, and that's been very welcome. The performance of our companies, that's also improved considerably during the year. From month 1, where we were forecasting a deficit of 5.6 million, that's dropped now to 1.1, so that's a significant improvement during the year. And in terms of income collection, council tax is holding up to what it was last year. Council tax reduction scheme a tad down, but not got the £150 payable that was made to claimants last year. And business rates, again, a tad down on last year, but it's not possible to compare like with like because of the different business rate reliefs and the timing of those. So all in all, at month 9, a very encouraging position to be had, considering we've nearly 2 years of COVID, and it sets the council up for 22-23.
Thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any questions? Can I just ask Steve, so I think the figure, what was the figure for this year for COVID not reimbursed?
3.7 million this year. Last year it was 3.16 million. So there were far more COVID financial support grants last year than this.
Thank you. So, thank you. No questions on that. So, if I could move the resolutions at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 in the agenda. Seconded, and can I have a show of hands, please?
And that's agreed, Chair.
Thank you. And then agenda item 3 is capital strategy 22-23 and 24-25. Back to Steve to talk us through that as well.
This is a fairly new report. I think 3 or 4 years ago it was introduced by SIPFA. It sets out the whole framework of types of capital expenditure, the priorities, the risks, the scope of expenditure, including geographic scope, and the overall governance framework. It distinguishes between capital and treasury management investment, distinguishes between service and commercial investment, and distinguishes between the types of property investment, be that operational, community, regeneration, or investment for yield. And following a number of recent consultations where we borrow, we have to identify the purpose of that borrowing, be that a housing scheme, an other service scheme, regeneration, a debt restructure, or lastly, investment for yield, which is an area that we don't get involved in. Most of our investments are around regeneration and housing. Any property investment that we have with a value of over £500,000 is revalued annually, unlike the rest of our asset portfolio, which is done on a 4-yearly cycle. And this strategy informs the capital programme, which is the next report on the agenda.
Thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any questions on the capital strategy? So can I move approval of recommendation 2.1 in the agenda? Show of hands, please.
That's agreed.
Thank you. And then we have agenda item 4, the capital programme you were just referring to, Steve.
The capital programme for the next 3 years, 22-3 through to 24-25. Very sizable programme, even by Blackpool standards, with forecast capital spend of 81 million, 101 million and 81 million again over that 3-year period. There is a recommendation that we continue the convention of top slicing of government grants up to the tune of 12.5% to fund those service spends where we don't get specific grants. And within those sizable programme, we see the major capital schemes of Central Business District Phase 3, the town deal schemes and the Grange Park housing developments of 131 properties. If any new capital schemes come along subsequently, separate business cases will be presented to the executive, and those cases, if approved, will then be incorporated in future capital monitoring.
Thanks, Steve, because I think that's likely to happen, isn't it? It's going to...
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, anyone any questions on that capital programme? So, if I could move for approval 2.1, 2, 3 and 4 in the agenda. I'll have a show of hands, please.
That's agreed.
Thank you. And then on to agenda item 5, Treasury Management Strategy 22-23. Thanks, Steve.
It's a 1-year strategy, not really a strategy. Again, it's more of a framework that looks at the overall cash borrowing, lending, cash management and banking over the forthcoming year. It employs the SLI principles of security and liquidity, taking precedence over yield within our capital programme. And within the 6 annexes, it identifies the scale of operations over that period, provides a treasury management policy statement, a borrowing strategy, including forecasts of future interest rates, which are probably already out of date following the Bank of England raising the base rate last week, and the prospect that with 4 members of the Monetary Policy Committee voting for an even higher rate, but the fact that we are locked in to many of the interest rates with our loans shouldn't affect the next 12 months. Annex D states our investment strategy, which includes a maximum 3-month limit on cash deposits. And this is a consequence of the former Icelandic bank crash of many years ago. We set that 3-month maximum. Annex E lists all the prudential indicators resulting from Treasury management and the capital programme. And lastly, Annex F lists states the minimum revenue provision strategy. Now, this has a potential conflict with a government consultation that's currently out with a deadline, I think, of today, actually, February the 8th. If enacted, this won't come in until the year 23-24, so will not impact upon next year. But from discussions that we've already had with the Department for Levelling Up, they already appreciate some of the unintended consequences of this consultation. So I do hope and expect that they will make revisions and exemptions to it.
Thanks, Steve. Do we know if other local authorities have made similar points or have raised the same issues that it's going to cause for them?
It's very much a consensus of opinion from all the local authorities on the meeting I was at.
Thanks, Steve. Anyone have any questions? No. So can I move recommendation to approval of recommendations at 2.1, 1, 2, 3 and 4 in the agenda? Can I have a show of hands?
Again, that's agreed.
Thank you. And then agenda item 6, which is the General Fund Revenue Budget 22-23. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you. And this report is almost a consequence of all the previous reports. It recommends a revenue budget net requirement for next year of just over £160 million, including a contribution to working balances, which will take working balances over the target of 6 million. In order to deliver that, there is a budget gap of 8.6 million to deliver. We started work on this back in July, and although without a doubt this has been the most difficult budget setting that I've been involved in, the amount of time and effort that's been put into it, I am very confident that this is a realistic and sustainable budget that will be delivered. I think looking elsewhere, we have a very prudent level of working balances and a healthy level of earmark reserves to support it besides that. So I think all in all, I would recommend this to executive to recommend to full council.
Thank you, Steve. And I know I've been at several meetings where thanks have been passed on, but I think we would like to just reiterate that to yourself and all of your department and across the council that have worked incredibly hard to deliver this. We do appreciate the work and difficulties that have gone on this year, particularly. Does anyone have any questions or no? So can I move approval of recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5 in the agenda? I'll give a show of hands.
That's agreed.
Thank you very much, Steve. And then we have agenda item 7, and I believe that's Alan is with us, who will be briefly introducing the item.
Yes, members will recall this is a regular review we have of the enterprise zone because it's a very large scheme. The ambition to create 5,000 jobs over 25 years in the enterprise zone, with the infrastructure funded by the receipts from increased rates as a result of companies moving to that area. Things do change over time. We've had a number of issues that have arisen, including it taking a little bit longer to get the permissions in place to build the roads and also to move some of the playing pitches that we needed to move in order to facilitate the developments. But also some good news in there in the sense that we've had a few businesses start up and a pretty significant one as well on the park. So this is a revision of the business plan over the remainder of the 25 years to demonstrate where the expenditure needs to take place and how that will be funded under the recommendations listed at from 2.1 onwards.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Nope. So, okay. I need to move an additional resolution in addition to 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and I'll just read this out. So the additional resolution to agree that appendices 7B and 7C are not for publication by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as they include detailed budget estimates and contingencies that enable the enterprise zone to be financially viable. The publication of the costings would undermine the council's position in continuing and future negotiations. So if I could move, in addition to that additional resolution, 2.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 in the agenda. And a show of hands, please.
And that's agreed.
Thank you very much. I think that's Good evening. Thank
That's
you
the
all
end
very
of your
much.
agenda.